give us a brief summation of what came out of that. I'm joined now by Samkele Maseko, who is joined by Ayanda Mhlongo as well. Thank you very much, Samkele, for joining us. Just give us a bit of a summation of what the judge had to say about the case.
In essence, the matter has been postponed for a tentative date, which is a holding date of the 17th of May, due to the various court applications that former President Jacob Zuma has made at the Supreme Court of Appeals, where he is seeking for a review of the judgment that he cannot appeal the judgment of the lower court, which basically refused for Advocate Billy Downer to be recused from prosecuting former President Jacob Zuma in this 17 to 22-year-old case of fraud, corruption, also involving Thales. We do know that the French International Arms Company also still needs to be brought into the country to also be represented within this court case that has seemingly ensued of former President Jacob Zuma. But my colleague Ayanda Mhlongo was paying attention to the merits of the case alongside myself, just under the essence of the matter being postponed to the 17th of May, which is a holding date, a tentative date, not yet conclusive, depending on what comes out of the SCA application that is before President Mandisa of the SCA.
Yeah, let's just run through those dates, Sam. And the judgment is handed down by Judge Pete Kuhn. As you said, the 17th of May is a holding date pending that decision by the appellant court. And what will happen then, if there is a decision by the Supreme Court of Appeal, well, let's say for example, the Supreme Court of Appeal decides to dismiss former President Jacob Zuma's now application for reconsideration, then the trial is set to get underway on the 31st of May. However, if there is no decision by the Supreme Court of Appeal come the 17th of May, then the parties will then meet to set another date, which will be a holding date. The judge has excused former President Jacob Zuma and the representative of French Arms Company Thales on the two holding date. However, if the trial is set to start on the 31st of May, then they must be present in court. And just to briefly, Sam, in terms of what the judge said in his judgment, we saw that the state was not happy and had said that they were going to oppose this application, but the judge saying that the actions of former President Jacob, well, he's well within his legal rights to want to take this matter forward or up for review at the Supreme Court of Appeal, and that the court needs to allow that process to conclude before then his criminal trial can then take place. So we're back on the 17th of May if there's a decision from the Supreme Court of Appeal.
So in essence, for now, it's a victory for former President Jacob Zuma, as the trial is not proceeding until the reconsideration application is considered by Judge Mandisa, President Mandisa of SCA, and that judgment is given.
Well, yes, a little bit of relief, Sam. Of course, today, as we know that former President Jacob Zuma's defense team had intended to file an indefinite postponement. They didn't quite get the indefinite postponement that they were initially seeking, Sam, which would have meant there was no date that would have been issued by the court insisting that there has to be a date by which the parties are back in court. I mean, you heard that the judge wants to wants this trial to get underway. The state as well saying that this matter has now dragged on for 2 decades, and so it's in the interest of all parties that the case goes to trial and that there is finally a conclusion in this matter. So some relief for former President Jacob Zuma, but one matter though, Sam, that we were waiting to hear was with the doctors or the medical report. Earlier on, Advocate Dalimpofu had said that they were going to receive a doctor's letter or medical report. However, that was not dealt with in court. Possibly they may have handed over the letter in chambers to the judge, but we'll have to wait. We'll wait and see.
Thank you very much. And as I bring on Mr. Carl Niehaus and our very own colleague Simpiwe Makanya, who was also inside of court, there you have Mr. Carl Niehaus cutting through the cameras there. Mr. Niehaus, just in essence, as a Zuma supporter, the essence of how you're feeling with the case in essence being postponed until the SCA reconsideration application is done at the SCA. How are you as the former president supporters feeling at this point?
Look, we would really like to see an end to this case, but this was the correct decision. And I'm very happy that Mr. Justice Kun also confirmed that President Zuma is correctly making use of his legal rights. You know, there's always this issue about Stalingrad strategy, delays, but Mr. Justice Kun was very clear today that President Zuma is using his rights correctly, that it is correct to make this application, and this ruling confirms it.
Where's the party tomorrow? He's celebrating his 80th birthday. Where will you be celebrating with him, particularly after this small reprieve that you've gotten from this Pietermaritzburg High Court?
I'm sure President Zuma will be sharing his 80th birthday, which is a big landmark, a big place in anyone's life, with his family, and I'm sure it will be at Nkandla.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kalneyhouse. As we call on our colleague Samkele Maseko just to come and also quickly wrap it up for us, as he was inside court and we're going through that particular court judgment. Mr. Maseko, just in essence, your assessment of how the case went today, the overall presentation of the verdict by Judge Piet Kun. How did you get a sense he arrived at this particular determination, particularly looking at the evidence which was provided for by Advocate Dalimbofu and later on rebutted by Billy Downer, Advocate Billy Downer of the state?
No surprises, Samkele, in terms of the decision by the judge this afternoon. Of course, we're expecting the judge to come to some agreement with both parties. In particular, you could hear from the arguments from both parties that the judge, as well as the state, as well as the former President Zuma's lawyers, were in some form of agreement in terms of adjourning this matter, because there is a pending application at the Supreme Court of Appeal in terms of that reconsideration application that is before the judge president there, Justice Maya, in the Supreme Court of Appeal.
So in essence, the court and the proceedings now move into the courtroom of Judge President Mandisa Maya of the Supreme Court of Appeals. Do you anticipate any shocks that may come from that particular court, whether she grants the reconsideration application or she dismisses it? Where would you think it may be largely slanted to, knowing very well that the first application was dismissed by the Supreme Court of Appeals, which in essence gave the leeway for this court to proceed today for the trial, which now with the reconsideration application has thus halted the beginning of this criminal trial, which is 2 decades old?
I wouldn't want to preempt the decision that will be taken by the legal representatives of former President Jacob Zuma, but of course we know that former President Jacob Zuma is on record saying that he will exhaust all legal avenues provided to him under the Constitution in ensuring that he gets a free and fair trial. And his argument, of course, is that he wants Advocate Billy Downer to step out of this court case so that he can present himself for the proceedings of the court. But if the decision from the SCA does not go in his favors, I highly do not think that he will end it there. I think he will approach the Constitutional Court, which is going to be the final court in this matter to take a decision.
Indeed, Samkele Maseko, that is the apex court in the land, which may ultimately have to decide on this issue of former President Jacob Zuma and the state, particularly having Billy Downer, Advocate Billy Downer, who is the state senior prosecutor, being removed from this case, which is in essence what the former president wants this criminal trial, which is about 2 decades old for when it finally begins. Judge of this court, Judge Piet Kun, in essence wants this criminal trial to get underway, which he says is in the best interest of both parties and society at large.